This week, another tragedy.
I don't understand if they knew why they let him come into this neighborhood, or in any other neighborhood.
A convicted child molester avoids prison because there is doubt over the testimony of a child.
We're never going to have a Pinocchio test. There will never be a test where the child's nose is growing longer when she gets it wrong.
But when the convicted molester is sent home, he kills 2 children.
When they do something like that, don't let them out. Just don't let them out at all.
Tonight, the country faces a growing dilemma, knowing when to believe a child's word. This is a subject that is so controversial, about which people on both sides of the issue feel so passionately, that you should know how, in this particular instance, it was brought to our attention. Sylvia Tamarkin has been a journalist for many years. She has devoted a great deal of attention to the subject of the sexual abuse of children by adults. Ms. Tamarkin has come to believe that in recent years, a great many children who claim to have been sexually abused are not believed, or at least that suspects are not prosecuted because of some high-profile cases in which the testimony of children was found in court to be not credible. At one point, Ms. Tamarkin served on the advisory board of an organization called Believe the Children. She insists, however, that she remains neutral on the subject, and we have found her to be a useful, objective, and reliable resource. I'm telling you all of this because some people are under the impression, and have communicated this to us, that Ms. Tamarkin produced the reports you're about to see. That is not true. Correspondent Aaron Hayes and producer Jim Hill have been especially sensitive to the suggestion that their work might be seen as anything less than objective reporting. And so have we. We're satisfied that this story is important and that Aaron's report has been compiled as fairly and cleanly as possible.
I was supposed to meet with
Robert Jamboys, a Kenosha, Wisconsin prosecutor, and his staff are preparing a case against a man accused of sexually molesting a little boy.
him waking up in the middle of the night, screaming, "Daddy, don't do it again."
As in most child sex abuse cases, there is no physical evidence.
Basically, the child's word against the word of the adult.
The case will hinge on the testimony of the boy. It will not be easy.
Right. He's going to be called a liar, and he's going to be told that they're going to say that he made this whole thing up, or that somebody else made it all up.
Jamboy says it will be doubly difficult because many potential jurors walk into court already dubious about the testimony of children.
One of the questions that we often ask juries, are you prepared to convict this defendant just based on the testimony or based exclusively on the testimony of an eyewitness? And many of them will say, yeah. And, well, what if this eyewitness is 5 years old? You believe this 5-year-old, and you don't believe the defendant. Are you still prepared to convict based exclusively on the testimony of this 5-year-old eyewitness? Oh, no, they're not really inclined to do that.
And prosecutors from more than a dozen major cities told Nightline it is a disturbing trend. In the past 5 years, they say, it has become much more difficult to prosecute child sex abuse because the credibility of children's testimony has come under attack.
The courtroom has gotten very mean. It's gotten mean for children, and it's gotten mean for the people who advocate for children. If I have a credible child who's able to give a credible account of what occurred, why shouldn't that be enough? Why shouldn't the jury believe that a child is telling the truth about these matters?
Because, a group of critics argues, in many cases, by the time children get to the witness stand, there has been too much opportunity for investigators to pressure children into describing abuse where there may be none. Attorney Stephen Comey has defended dozens of people charged with child sex abuse.
My experience is that a qualified lawyer or psychiatrist, social worker, or psychologist could get a child to say just about anything they want while they're talking to them.
It has all the criteria of a witch hunt, and the similarities between Salem and what we have now are uncanny.
There is a history behind those charges, a spate of high-profile sex abuse cases gone awry.
The community of Jordan, Minnesota has been jolted by allegations of a ring of child sexual abusers.
Cases in the 1980s, charges that defied belief.
Coerced into staying silent by the brandishing of guns and the mutilating of animals.
But police and prosecutors had little, if any, experience with these unusual cases. Some took children's stories at face value, or worse, relentlessly interviewed some children until they finally came forward with stories of abuse.
The children were never allowed to say in their own words what happened to them.
In the years since, many of those cases have unraveled. Many of those accused had charges against them dropped, were acquitted, or had their convictions overturned.
Clearly, in the last 10 years, there have been mistakes made in prosecution. There has been overcharging, there's been overreaching, there's been overzealous statements made by prosecutors, by investigators, by therapists.
Those mistakes, prosecutors say, prompted them to change the system. Safeguards are being put in place, and interviewers are being trained not to lead children on in questioning.
This system works. This system works more effectively and more efficiently with better results and better decision-making now than it did 10 years ago.
But prosecutors say convincing juries of that has been extraordinarily difficult in the face of a counterattack they say is planting widespread doubt about the believability of children's testimony.
And prosecutors say that counterattack is succeeding on the basis of unproven theories and misapplied science that they say should have no place in the courtroom.
At the heart of many cases involving the sexual abuse of children is a debate over science in the courtroom. Erin Hayes continues her report.
So we can talk to the gross stuff?
This is what is at the center of the debate, the statements of children, like this one who told prosecutor Jamboys that her father sexually molested her.
He licked his hand and stuck it in her back, in my bathroom.
He did?
If you are a juror listening to this child, should you have strong doubts? Is there reason to believe a child would make up something like that, or could be led to make it up? Many who defend the accused point to a body of research they say shows children can and do make up stories of sexual abuse.
Have a flower in it.
Some of the research they cite most frequently is that of Cornell University psychologist Stephen Cece. Professor Cece's staff has found they can elicit elaborate stories from young children, stories that are absolutely untrue, like this one.
A monkey escaped a man from the zoo, looked in its cage. He asked if I could help him find it, and I found it.
The studies have been widely cited in the media as evidence for questioning children's accounts of sex abuse. USA Today, suggestive questions can induce kids to falsely claim abuse. The Boston Herald said interviewers' techniques can often convince non-abused children they were truly molested. And more, Cece's work has been cited in the courtroom as evidence of a high degree of suggestibility among young children, that it's quite easy to distort a child's memory, and a child who was not abused may come to believe they were.
The person in the park that was looking for a monkey.
But Cece says in many cases his work has been misused and misunderstood.
Not only do I believe children can be reliable in sexual abuse cases, I believe the vast majority of them are reliable in those cases.
But Cece says what is missing from many accounts of his work is that it is fairly difficult to convince children to make up even the most harmless stories.
So in our studies, we work at it very hard.
And guess what? They found the monkey and gave it back to the lady. Does that ever happen to you, anything like that?
No.
Did you ever help a stranger in a park to find a monkey that ran away from a zoo? You did.
Pursue kids repeatedly over long periods of time.
Anything like that has happened to you? What?
No.
I'm not talking about a single interview where you sit down and you use a single leading question and all of a sudden the child's giving you some highly elaborate narrative about something that never happened. That isn't how we grow a narrative. We do it over long periods of time with repeated false suggestions by an interviewer.
That doesn't seem to bear most child sexual abuse cases.
I would agree.
In fact, in his studies, most of the children ultimately do not give in to interviewers' suggestions. And while many of the interviews are about more serious subjects, medical exams, for example, they are not about sex abuse. Many in the child protection field are troubled that Cece's research is being applied to sex abuse cases.
Because a child can be convinced of some event within their realm of experience, such as seeing a clumsy clown at a party, it doesn't translate into that they can be made to believe that their grandfather had sex with them every Friday night for the last 3 years. It doesn't tell them about what the taste of semen is like. It doesn't tell them about the pain.
You see, the narrative is growing.
Professor Cece says he sees his research as a first step toward understanding cases where children have made false allegations of abuse.
No way denies the true incidence of child sexual abuse to say that some percentage of those claims may be faulty because of the way the adults have pursued